For those amendments, sir, if I may go through to do them all, that is on subject on what we have discussed is an amendment that we are proposing at some point on page 8A, line 24A, where we will remove the phrase within the second civil degree of consanguinity or affinity, and in lieu thereof insert the phrase or to any appointed government official or employee classified as salary grade 22 or higher under the Compensation and Position Classification Act of 1989, who is holding office in the same province or highly urbanized city or independent city where the barangay where he or she seeks to be elected is situated.
So can the sponsor read the new provision now starting on line 23 on page 8? How does it read now?
Line 23 will then read, after turpitude, and must not be related within the second civil degree of consanguinity or affinity to any incumbent elected national officials or to any incumbent elected provincial, city, municipal, or barangay official in the locality where he or she seeks to be elected, or to any appointed government official or employee classified as salary grade 22 or higher under the Compensation and Position Classification Act of 1989, who is holding office in the same province or highly urbanized city or independent city where the barangay where he or she seeks to be elected is situated. And so we have tried to accommodate all of the discussion that we had amongst our colleagues yesterday's session, Mr. President.
All right.
However, Mr. President, before I move for its inclusion as a amendment to the SK Reform Bill, it's my understanding that the acting minority floor leader has some questions on exactly this point. So I would like, with the permission of the chair, to yield to the minority floor leader on this matter.
The minority floor leader is recognized.
The SK.
Correct.
And in our studies, mukha namang talagang prevalent yung ganung klaseng practice. And in fact, that is why we felt we had to address the issue.
All right.
No,
I always thought she was younger.
I know many people thought that, but I'm...
May I ask the...
Magagalit sa akin ang aking kapatid, pero
No,
just in the interest of good order, I would just like to put on record that, in fact, Governor Amy Marcos is a vital assistant.
I'm sorry then, I was about to ask the Secretariat to send a copy of the journal on this portion to the Governor of Ilocos Norte. But anyway, I would like to appeal to the distinguished gentleman to consider this before you really close that particular provision. Baka pwede official lang, huwag natin idamay lahat because we will go into the larger issue of anti-political dynasty.
One of the reasons that we feel that we have to include the higher officials, ang aming original na pinag-usapan ay hanggang province, hanggang city, ay there is a distinct possibility kapag anak ng mayor or kahit na anak ng governor ang naging SK ay ipaglalaban ng kanyang pamilya na siya ay maging ex-officio member unang-una sa municipality dahil sa ABC at magiging ex-officio member hanggang sa Sangguniang Panlalawigan, again, dahil ma-elect ng ABC. Kaya the observation that it will only affect that barangay is not necessarily the case, because if influence is exerted by a higher official, then it is entirely possible that a SK member will then become an ex-officio member not only of the city municipality, but in fact all the way up to the province. That is the reason why ang original na limit namin, na limitation doon sa anti-dynasty provision was until the province, until we had that discussion for yesterday. So that is the reason why we had originally extended it to the provincial level until the chair brought up the different issues that were surrounding that proposed amendment.
Mr. President, yes, I recognize the point of the gentleman.
Mr. President, I would just like, before I respond to Senator Soto, I would just like to add to the comments of Senator Ejercito in that it is only natural for us to expect that if a governor's son or daughter is elected as an SK in barangay, that ipaglalaban nila ng husto na magiging youth representative yan sa municipality at magiging youth representative yan sa board dahil ang governor magkakaroon ng karagdagang isang boto na tiyak doon sa kanyang provincial board. The same thing kung ang mayor, ang anak niya ay naging SK, ay nakakatiyak tayo, ipaglalaban niya yan na siya ang magiging ex officio youth representative ng Sangguniang Bayan o Sangguniang Panlunsod. Kaya this is the influence that we are trying to avoid. Now, the dynamic that Senator Soto is describing na nagbabata ng tao para maging kahit na hindi niya kamag-anak, that is the natural process of politics. Dahil kukuha ka ng kakampi mo, although barangay elections and barangay matters are meant to be non-partisan, naturally, you try to have your own kaalyado to have a vote. Kaya para may mas maraming kakampi ka. So that is, I don't think that is a process that we would like to avoid. It is the normal process of politics during elections. So I do not think that that's something that we have to guard against. Is the point that I'm trying to make. What we have to guard against, and what we are trying to do with this anti-dynasty provision, is that the influence that will be exerted by a higher official so that their sons or daughters will be elected as ex officio members in their sanggunians, that kind of undue influence is what we are trying to avoid. And that is something that, and the promotion of the continuing dominance of one family in an area is also what we are trying to avoid. So kung ang higher official, meron siyang naging kaibigan na SK at ay paglalaban niya ng youth representative, there is nothing wrong with that. That is again, gumagawa tayo na lahat naman pag eleksyon, nagbubuo ng grupo at yung grupong yan ay pinaglalaban, kinakampanya para manalo ang mga kasama. So I do not feel that there is a danger in that, although I do feel that there is a danger in the suggestion that the recognized dynamic that a parent who is holding a high position will exert all influence possible, not only because it is their child who is in position or who is in the election, but also because it will add to their percentage within the board, whatever the board is, if it is the provincial board or the city or municipal. So that is my response to the gentleman from Quezon City.
All right, Mr. President, in that case, we are practically saying that if that is the position, we're practically saying that the national officials have nothing to do with that because hindi naman sila pwedeng makialam sa provincial board or sa sangguniang panglusod or pambayan. What do you think?
Well, I can, halimbawa, to use an example out of, we need closer to home. I am sure any of the senators here can exert influence in their home provinces and home communities when it comes to these elections of SK or any other election for that matter. In my own experience, I came from local government, and so what happens in local government is of great interest to me. And I continue to be involved in the discussions and the political decisions that are being made simply because I am a constituent of my province, Ilocos Norte, and I have a say in that as a former governor. and as a senator. So again, that is something that we want to minimize. It is not something that I think we can remove completely, but certainly we want to minimize to give an opportunity for those who have not really been involved in government to be involved in government, to encourage them that kasi maraming nangyayari, sinasabi ng SK, hindi na ako tatakbo dahil ang magiging kalaban ko anak ni Mayor, wala akong panalo dyan. That is the precise situation that we want to avoid. And so to encourage people who are not in government to come into, to young people to come into government. Kaya naman para we have a vibrant discussion, we have a vibrant debate when it comes to the different issues in the local community. So that is why in our discussions yesterday, while the original proposal was only to include the barangay, it was then extended all the way to the provincial officials. We also included now the national officials and even the appointed officials. Kaya't dun nga tayo nahirapan kung paano we will delineate where will we draw the line as to where the appointed officials' children should be allowed, which of the appointed officials will allow their children to run for SK. So precisely the point that, as a matter of fact, I would even argue that a national official has a great deal more influence in the local community than the mayor or the mayor or the governor. So again, that is something that we are trying to avoid, and that is what we have tried to attend to. This is the issue that we have tried to remedy with these amendments that I had read out and hope to propose.
Well, anyway, Mr. President, I believe that we have discussed it discussively, and therefore I just leave it into the hands of the chairman if he will accept the proposal or not, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I feel that we must stick to our guns on this issue, and we will to include not only local barangay and local officials, but including national and appointed officials. And as I had read it in my what will be my proposed amendment, it will be to salary grade 22 and above.
What would be salary grade 22, Senator Marcos?
The reason we do have salary grade 22 because the principals of schools are salary grade 22, and the conduct of the elections involve, as we well know, the DepEd, and that is why we brought it all the way down to salary grade 22.
Thank you.
So with that, I am sorry to have to say that we do not accept the proposed amendments of the minority floor leader, and we feel that this the formulation as I have read it is the one that will actually give meat to the anti-dynasty intentions.
May I just then register my abstention on this particular provision?
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Soto. Well, okay. What does the sponsor now?
Mr. President, if I may, I would like to then propose the additional individual amendments to the.
Can you restate that the particular?
I will do that, Mr. President. So the individual amendments are these. On page 8, line 23, after the word related, insert the phrase within the second civil degree of consanguinity or affinity. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none.
On the same page and line, after the word elected, insert the phrase national officials or any incumbent elected provincial. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved. Record the abstention of minority leader.
On page 8A, line 24A, delete the phrase within the second civil degree of consanguinity or affinity, and in lieu thereof, insert the phrase or to any appointed government official or employee classified as salary grade 22 or higher, under the Compensation and Position Classification Act of 1989, who is holding office in the same province or highly urbanized city or independent city where the barangays where he or she seeks to be elected is situated. So moved, Mr. President.
Record the abstention. With the abstention of Senator Soto, the amendment is carried.
That is the extent of the individual amendments that I intend to propose, Mr. President. Thank you.
Back to 24, Mr. President.
Mr. President, first of all, on the statement that 25 and above is no longer young or youth, I would have to point to the experience and the practice of several other countries. In fact, where up to 35 is considered part of the youth. The countries of Malaysia is 35. The other countries in ASEAN are 30. The United Nations uses the age 30 for the cutoff in terms of the youth. And so we are trying to put ourselves in consonance with those other practices, so that when it comes to international relations between our youth movement and the youth movement of other countries and the United Nations, that we are, as I said, in consonance with their definitions. And I think that the experience of the other countries speaks well of that kind of classification. But that is why, in fact, the
May I know from the gentleman, in those other countries that he mentioned, if there is a limit on the age of a congressman or a parliamentarian or a president or a vice president?
There are limits as well, but the limits do cross, nag-overlap na. If you, as the gentleman has explained, 25 years old qualifies you to be a congressman. It is a similar situation. I do not have the details with me right now. I am happy to supply the gentleman, the minority floor leader, with those details. But there are situations where members of parliament, for example, need to be 30 or can be younger, and youth is still recognized as 30. So that kind of overlap, which is being illustrated by the gentleman, is present in those. And nevertheless, it seems to work. It seems to work well. I would just like to remind the body that the reason that we put the age higher was to answer the valid criticism. It turns out the valid criticism that the young people 15 to 17 are in school and cannot attend to their jobs and their duties as SK officials. Furthermore, they are unable to sign documents, they are unable to enter into contracts, they are unable to because they are not yet in the age of majority, they are not able to do many of the things that are required of them as SK officials, and have to depend on the elders in the barangay community and the barangay officials for those functions. So that is just to give a background. That is the reason that was a very important part of our deliberations, and that is why this is the result of those deliberations.
I am in full agreement on the 18 years old, Mr. President, but I would like to insist that the gentleman consider a maximum of 24 years old, 18 to 24. His original committee report, if possible, Mr. President.
May I have a minute suspension, Mr. President?
Suspended for 1 minute.
What we are talking about here is the age of the entire katipunan ng barangay, or just elected officials? Or rather, prospective candidates. I beg your pardon. Prospective candidates, or the entire katipunan ng kabataan?
Candidates, Mr. President.
Candidates.
Candidates.
In which case, Mr. President, we accept the amendment that's proposed by the gentleman.
All right. There's a motion for a reconsideration.
Yes, Mr. President, precisely correct.
Very well, we accept, Mr. President.
The amendment is accepted. Any objection?
If we do that, Mr. President, we will also have to amend
Page 9.
Page 9.
On page 9, from on line 4.
Yes.
The same, we will delete the words, the name and the words and numbers 27 and restore 24 years of age at the time of.
In words and numbers.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to thank the gentleman and the sponsors also of the measure for accepting the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other amendment? Mr. Sponsor?
Yes, Mr. President, it has been pointed out to me that on page 1, line 4, we need to change the, on line 4, it still reads Youth Development Empowerment Act of 2014. So the proposed amendment is on page 1, line 4, change the year 2014 to 2015. So,
Any
Mr.
objection? Hearing none. Approved.
That is all, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader?